questions? All right. Shall we start?
Yes, Guru Maharaj, we can start.
All right. Okay. Devotees and friends, we have the questions here. We have 17 questions. And I'm just looking at them. Actually, we got 16. There's one of them's repeated here, but some good questions. All right, so first question, if we get Krishna devotion once, can we then fall back to our previous state? Yeah, being pre-Krishna devotion, before Krishna devotion. Well, the answer is yes, it's possible. And it happens sometimes that someone becomes a devotee and they're practicing, but then at some point something goes wrong and they lose interest, or they become interested in something else. I mean, I've also seen, I've seen a young woman or a young man, they become devotees, but then they meet a member of the opposite sex who really attracts them very strongly, and the person is not a devotee, and they leave their Krishna consciousness to be with that person. So in different ways, it happens sometimes, not with everyone by any means, but with some, it definitely happens. But, so that's the bad news. The bad news is you got to be careful, because you might get into trouble if you're not careful. But the good news is that in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 40, Lord Krishna says, Neha bikrama nashosti pratyavayo navijate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. That that any advancement in Krishna consciousness is never just like completely lost. And even a little advancement can save you from the greatest type of fear. What that means is that even if you get into such a situation as I just mentioned, that somehow you get distracted from Krishna consciousness and you get involved in something else or with some other person or people, and you just stop practicing Krishna consciousness, then the thing is this, according to that verse, chapter 2, verse 40, Bhagavad Gita, according to that, even though your Krishna consciousness, you may not be consciously involved in Krishna consciousness, but it remains in your heart. It may be hidden. It may be hidden for some time due to you becoming absorbed in something else. But after some time, maybe just in your next lifetime even, it's possible sometime later, by Krishna's mercy, you'll meet devotees and that Krishna consciousness will become stimulated. It'll become aroused again. Yeah. So this happens with many of the people who become Krishna conscious, but then they fall away after a while. That after some time, by Krishna's mercy, they come back. But until they come back, they may get they can, and sometimes they get really very sidetracked. They really go into another world and forget their Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So, okay, number 2. What if someone has committed a lot of offences to a lot of devotees, and it's not possible to meet those devotees to ask for forgiveness? What should be done in that case? Yeah, that's a good question. And someone actually asked Srila Prabhupada that question, the same question, but even with some more subtlety to it. Yeah, something you haven't mentioned, but it's also a very important part of the picture, is that we may not, what to speak of not being able to find the devotees we've offended and apologize, but you may not even know that you offended some devotees. Like particularly when you're very new in Krishna consciousness, you may not know, you may not understand what is an offense, and you may offend a devotee, and you may not be aware that what I've done was offensive. Yeah. So anyway, so the question was put to Prabhupada like that. I may not know who I offended. I may not remember the devotees. I may not be able to locate them, even if I know who some of them are. So what to do then? And Srila Prabhupada answered that every morning, what you must do, you must chant the prayer, Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So Prabhupada said that that is what you can do, and it will, by Krishna's mercy, it will deal with those offenses and correct the situation in regard to those offenses, which otherwise you can't deal with directly. But having said that, we must be careful not to use that as an excuse that I offended this devotee and that devotee and some other devotee, but rather than take the trouble to go to them and beg forgiveness and to please them and make up for the offense, I'll just chant Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha every day and that'll deal with it. No. If you know you've offended someone and it's possible to meet that person, then you must meet them and settle the matter. But it's only in those cases where maybe you don't even know who you offended, or you don't know how to find those devotees, those types of situations, then every morning you chant that prayer. But actually it's our practice in ISKCON, at least wherever I go, it's definitely our practice everywhere, that after Mangal Arati every morning, we all chant this prayer. Yes. Okay, now next question. What is the proper way to read Bhagavad Gita? Learning or reading or trying to understand? What do I do with that knowledge? Well, of course you can just read the book. It's a book. You can read the book. That's what I did first. When I first was getting into Krishna consciousness, I read Bhagavad Gita from beginning to end. And when I finished, I remember very clearly finishing the book, closing the book, and thinking, yes, well, I have to surrender. There's no good alternative. But, you know, a very good way to study Bhagavad Gita is to join a study group, like do Bhakti Shastri, because in Bhakti Shastri there's very detailed study made of Bhagavad Gita. So that's good to do Bhakti Shastri. Or there are other Bhagavad Gita study groups. There are many in different places all over the world. So you can get together with a group of devotees led by a more senior devotee who's more knowledgeable and experienced. And that senior devotee can lead you through the Bhagavad Gita step by step. And then it becomes so clear, so very clear. What is Krishna saying in this chapter, in this place, and how is Arjuna reacting, and how the conversation develops. So that's a really good thing. That's an excellent thing to do. Then what do you do with the knowledge? Well, that's also a very important question. You know, the thing is, knowledge is such a thing that if you don't distribute it, you tend to lose it. Yeah. So Srila Prabhupada emphasized so much book distribution. Even right now, we're going into the marathon, Prabhupada marathon, Christmas marathon, and we're distributing that knowledge. We've got the knowledge, now we're distributing it. So book distribution, this is very important, plus just speaking to people, discussing with other devotees. Krishna mentions that in Bhagavad Gita. Discussing with devotees, telling people, speaking to people, informing them what is Krishna consciousness. It's very important to do things like this. Otherwise, you'll tend to lose the knowledge. Okay, next question. I know the things I'm doing are wrong, but I still can't help myself doing these things. Will I ever feel regretful for my bad deeds and stop doing them? Well, you know, Krishna, if you're a devotee and you're trying to be a devotee, but you've got some strong material attachments which you can't just walk away from just like that, then Krishna, if you have some sincerity, then Krishna will help. And there are different ways he may help. The end result of that help will be that you will give up those bad habits, become free from them by Krishna's help, by his mercy. But that can happen in different ways. One way, of course, is that Krishna will just give you clearer realization, and you'll see, yes, I have to give this up. It's extremely bad for me. The more you become convinced like that, the more you'll feel the need to give up these things, and you'll gradually become able to. Another way Krishna may help you in this regard is he may put you in a situation where you see through experience how these bad habits are destroying you, and you become forced to give them up by Krishna's mercy. Yeah, so if it depends on sincerity. If someone's not really sincere, if they don't really care, and if they're not really interested, like, I should progress in Krishna consciousness, it's really important, then, if it's very casual, then it can take a long time. Yeah. But if you're sincere, you know what you can do? You can pray to Krishna that I know these habits I have. Maybe you're addicted to smoking, for example. I mean, there's all sorts of bad habits you may have. So you can pray to Krishna that I know that it's not good for me, it's not good for my Krishna consciousness to keep doing this. So Krishna, please help me in some way. Help me to become free from this. And if you pray from the heart every day, regularly like this, then Krishna will intervene. And yes, you'll become cured. How to keep chanting Maha mantra all the time, even without beads, or if beads are not available. Is there a way I can chant 24 hours even while sleeping? Lord Chaitanya, the use of beads for chanting japa mala, it's a fairly recent introduction, means in the last few hundred years, Lord Chaitanya did not chant on beads. He chanted on a piece of cloth which had knots in it. Yeah. So, you can just chant, you can sing, you can just chant anywhere, anytime. And in regards to while you're sleeping, if you really chant a lot while you're awake, then at night, while you're sleeping, the chanting will go on within your heart as a result of your serious chanting during the day. So, number 7, how to feel myself as fallen, most sinful soul. I say it with my mouth to everyone, but still my heart thinks I'm special. Well, again, prayer. You can pray to the Lord. My dear Lord, I know I'm a fool, but the problem is I'm such a fool that I can't see what a fool I am sometimes. So please, Lord, help me to just see really clearly what a fool I am, so I can become genuinely humble. Because to become humble, you have to have something to be humble about. It means you have to be able to see that there's something negative there within you, in fact. And then you can feel, gosh, I'm like that. And then you become actually humble in a natural way. And not just, just words. Who is a devotee? How to recognize a devotee? Yes. Well, that there are a few ways of answering that. It's an important point. One way, which is a very interesting and important way of understanding this, who's a devotee, how to recognize a devotee. It's found in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Lord Chaitanya was asked 3 times each year for 3 years by a group of devotees when they came for the Rath Yatra in Jagannath Puri from Bengal. For 3 years in a row, they asked Lord Chaitanya exactly the same question. And Lord Chaitanya answered in 3 different ways, each year a different way. Different way means describing how to recognize 3 different levels of devotees. So the first year, they asked him, so how do we recognize a devotee? Who's a devotee? And Lord Chaitanya answered, anyone who in their life chants the name of Krishna 1 time is the best of the common people. Means like Kanishta Adhikari or even pre-Kanishta. Yeah, so that was the first answer. Then the next year, the same devotees asked exactly the same question. And Lord Chaitanya answered that devotee, that person who is always chanting Hare Krishna, is the best of the devotees. You can recognize chanting. Then the next year, 3rd time, they asked Lord Chaitanya the same question. So now that second one, that's a middle-level devotee, Madhyamadikari. Then the next year they asked, same question. And Lord Chaitanya said, anyone who, when people see him, they spontaneously chant Hare Krishna, is the best of the devotees. Means the Uttama Adhikari, Maha Bhagavat, topmost devotee. Okay, so number 9. If Krishna's our Father and loves us and wants the best for us, then why doesn't he give us himself and make us realize him? Why do people have to spend many lifetimes to attain and realize Krishna? Yes, the thing is that, forcing people to do something is not really so good. But if you can inspire people so they decide they want to do that thing themselves, they have their own inspiration, that's much better. They say, If you point a loaded gun at someone's head and tell the person to tell you that they love you, or else you'll shoot them, it's extremely likely they'll say, oh yes, I really love you. But they don't love you. It's just they're being forced. But, it's an obvious example. When two people meet and get to know each other and develop a whole relationship, and then they come to the point of telling each other, I love you. And they actually mean it. So this is what Krishna wants with us. This is why he's given us Bhagavad Gita. This is why he appears in this world. This is why he's established the parampara, disciplic succession, so that humanity, each one of us, gets the realization that actually I need to develop my relationship with Krishna. I want to develop my relationship with Krishna. I want to serve him, and I want to become his devotee. So when people become inspired like that, then they develop a real relationship with Krishna. Otherwise, if it's just by force, just imagine some person is a meat eater. He drinks liquor. He's chasing the opposite sex. He likes pop music, Western pop music. If you just take him back to Goloka Vrindavan, just like that, in that condition, he won't want to stay. He'll ask, okay, where's the where can I get a hamburger or some chicken to eat? And the devotees in Goloka Vrindavan will tell him, no, here we only take prasadam. He won't be happy. And, where is the local bar? I want to drink some beer or some whiskey. And the devotees say, no. Here we just drink, water offered to the Lord or some juice or something. And the person will not be happy. So, okay, where's the disco? Where can I pick up a girl? No, we don't do that. You get the idea. So then the person will very quickly come to the point that let me out of here. I want to go back to the material world and just get into material enjoyment. So this is preaching Krishna consciousness. This is preaching Krishna consciousness to help a person to understand themselves that I need to become Krishna conscious. And to help them to appreciate how beneficial it is, how nice it is, so that they feel, yes, I want to become Krishna conscious. And this is why in Bhagavad Gita, for example, chapter 10, verse 10, Tesham sadhata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvikam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Not that I force them to come to me, but I give them the understanding so they understand, yes, this is the right thing. I want to do it. And from that can come love, not by force. Number 10, am I eligible to chant on tulsi beads, or am I an impure soul and should chant on neem beads. You know, our general practice, although it's not like a rule or, exactly like you have to do it like this, is that before people are initiated, generally, we have them chant on neem beads. But once they're initiated, at the time of initiation, they're given tulsi beads. Like I say, there's no law exactly, but it is a practice that, because tulsi is very special, very, very, very special, and must be treated very respectfully and nicely. So the idea why it generally works like that, just in practice, is that we want to see, is a person serious? And generally, if they come to the point of being initiated, it means they're basically serious at least. So then they're given the tulsi beads. This is the usual thing. 11, can you do japa at 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning? Is it correct at this time? And can I brush my teeth and do japa at this time, or must I take a bath? I have a problem with sleep, and I don't want to waste my time. Yeah. Well, you can do that. You can do that. Generally, Prabhupada would get up early, that sort of time, actually. But he would translate. Yeah. But sometimes he would chant at that time. And then he would take a bath a little later. Yeah. So that can be done. It's also nice, if you want to get up early, it is nice to take a bath. Because, otherwise you tend to still feel like the after effects of being lying down and in tamagun, in the mode of ignorance. But anyway, you don't have to. You can always get up, brush your teeth, wash your face, and then you can chant. All right. If someone is making garland for Krishna, is this service called devotional service? Well, for example, in Vrindavan and many places in India, you get people who make garlands and sell them. And sell them at the entrances of different temples. You may have seen in Vrindavan in front of our Krishna Balaram temple. There's a number of people. They're making garlands and they're selling, and that's how they're making a living. So it's not the same as a devotee making the garland and then offering it to the Lord. Yeah, if you make a garland and you offer it to the Lord, it's better than making garlands and selling them to people who'll then offer them to the Lord. Because if you're making money, that's different from doing something simply as a service with no desire for any remuneration or anything, just to offer to the Lord. If you want to do this service without offense, perfectly to please Krishna, please guide us we're not on that level, at least can try to please the Lord. How can one please the spiritual master? Well, that's a little unclear, really. But the thing is this: we have to try to do whatever service we're doing in a mood of service, in a mood of wanting to please the Lord, please the spiritual master, not in the mood that I'm doing this so I will get something from the Lord or the spiritual master. So if you try to do like that, it may not be easy to keep focused like that, but if you try and then you render service, then the service will be accepted by the spiritual master. And whatever impurity is there in the service, the spiritual master will remove that, and he will offer it to his spiritual master, who will offer it to his spiritual master, and eventually it will be offered to Krishna. But the good news is that even though when you did that service, you tried to do it, but you didn't do it so nicely, but you will get the benefit of the service being offered to the Lord purely in the end. You will get that benefit by the mercy of the spiritual master and the disciplic succession. 14, I started chanting this year, and I like this Krishna consciousness process. Can I still celebrate Christmas? Yes, because Christ is a devotee. He is a devotee. So you can still celebrate Christmas. When we write to devotees, we mention your servant at the end and Dandavat Pranam at the beginning. But most times we don't even mean it. I just write it like on autopilot. How do I develop this genuine mood of being a servant? Well, if you keep saying it, gradually it will start coming to you. That's one thing. But as you're writing, you have to think. When you write a letter, do you just write anything? Or do you think, I'm writing this letter to such and such person. What would be suitable to say to this person? Because when you write different letters to different people, you say different things in terms of who you're writing to. If you write to your wife, then you'll say different, you'll write differently from if you write to your boss at work. Of course. So you have to think, you have to be conscious. This is why Prabhupada called our process Krishna consciousness. We're meant to be conscious of everything that's going on in our lives. You can't be conscious of everything in the universe, but you definitely should try to be conscious of what's going on in your life in order to live your life constructively. So when you write letters and you offer your obeisances and so on, you got to be conscious. I'm saying this, and try and put your heart into it. So Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Many people ask me why I'm a devotee at this age. Now I am 19 years old. Everybody said that bhakti is for old age. Now is my age for study. If you take the spiritual path, How will you look after your parents? If you take the devotional path, you only have to serve the society. What should be my answer to such people? Well, one thing is that in the Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj says, Kumarad Achared Pragyo, that you should start Krishna consciousness, Kumara, in your childhood. Yeah. But just because you're now Krishna conscious doesn't mean that you can't look after your parents. I mean, the first thing you can do to try to look after your parents is you can try and help them to become devotees. Then it just becomes very easy and wonderful. But even if you try, but they don't become devotees, even though you tried, still you can assist your parents. It's a duty, but you can do things, for example, give them prasadam, find out what they like to eat. Generally people like sweets, so you can give them sweets regularly, give them prasadam regularly, and try in different ways, without being sort of too forceful if they're not really interested, but try to help them to become interested. Anyway, so it's not a problem. You can still look after your parents as much as possible in Krishna conscious ways, if you're a devotee and if they're not devotees. Every 12 years, this is the last question. Every 12 years, the old deities are changed and new deities are placed on the altar at Sri Jagannath Puri. My question is, what happened to the first deities which were made by Vishvakarma at the request of King Indradyumna? It's not that they always do after 12 years. The most recent, or just somewhat recently, they only changed the deities after 36 years, I was told. But anyway, the original deities from Vishvakarma, yes, they were there. And they were replaced after whatever time. And what they do is, as far as I know, they bury the old deities. So we assume they buried the old deities. There have been times when they have donated the old deities to some other temple somewhere. Yeah, they didn't bury the old ones. They replaced them, but the old ones they donated. I've been told that the Jagannath deities in our Jagannath temple in Mayapur, long time before, they were on the altar in Jagannath Puri. That's what I've been told. So sometimes that happens. But anyway, those first deities, they must have been buried. That's what the system is. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for your nice questions. Generally, they were very good questions, actually. On some of the other times, there were a few questions that weren't really suitable, but these are good questions. Okay. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.